Obviously, no one ever condemned anti-Semitism from a White House stronger than Trump. Certainly not FDR, who sent 6 million Jews to their death happily. And certainly not Truman, who begrudgingly allowed Israel a few months to breathe. No, this is the finest president for Jews and the most against hate. And this guy has hate sites of Trump on his web. He has said over and over again that Trump is a globalist and not a nationalist. He would never voted for him. And the other guy with his silly pipe bombs that don't explode because he doesn't know what he's doing and wasn't meant to. He was a hanger-on who wasn't a supporter either. He's just a hanger-on like the guy who followed John Lennon for 6 months until he shot him. You have to understand that these are maneuvers used against us, against the Jews, against the Trump administration, who is a best friend of Israel ever, to try and derail momentum before the midterms. That's what this is. These are not isolated acts, and they're certainly not done by Trump people, rather quite the contrary.
So on this night of Rabbi Kahane's yahrzeit, what words would you have for Jews who are feeling sympathy, obviously, at this time, and don't have an outlet for expressing their indignation against this anti-Semitism?
Oh, look, Jews can always have an outlet for expressing their indignation. Jews are great writers. They can be on radio programs. They can organize within themselves. They can realize that self-defense is not something that's verboten. That's not something that's evil. That Rabbi Kahane implored Jews to learn to use guns, to defend themselves. And I think it's very important for American Jews to realize that the alarming escalation of Jew hatred didn't just happen yesterday or the day before. It's been slowly percolating over the last few decades. It's high time for Jews to realize that the real enemies, the ones who are fomenting anti-Semitism in the world, yes, are the sick, hate-filled people like Bowers, but the real enemy are the BDS movement that has taken over our college campuses. Every single campus has an Israel Apartheid Week. Mr. Taylor, I'm sure, will elaborate on his recent experiences at Columbia University. BDS, for those folks who don't know, is boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel.
Wait.
It's a movement that was created to economically, academically, culturally, politically boycott Israel.
But are you saying that the BDS movement is a bigger problem than outright anti-Semitism from the far left and far right?
Well, I think that the anti-Semitism from the far left, especially, we're talking about the Antifa people and the far right, has all got, the wind beneath their wings is the BDS movement. The fact that, you see, when a person says, look, I'm anti-Israel, they'll go on campus, oh, you're Jewish? I have nothing against you because you're Jew. I just hate Israel. Don't believe it. Israel's the bogeyman of the world. It's the Jew of the world. When Israel is attacked, the Jew is attacked. And those two isms, anti-Israel, they're inextricably intertwined, and nobody can really debate that. And yes, there are anti-Semitic websites, and anti-Semitism has been around since time immemorial. But we're living at a time where people are not doing enough to stop the expression of hatred against Jews on campuses. And who's not doing enough? The ADL, the liberal Jews, who say, but what about freedom of speech, freedom of expression? We can't silence them, because if we silence them, then we'll be silenced, and so on and so forth. No, it's high time to speak the truth, to challenge the BDS, to be out there, and to have sympathetic media behind us. We already have the president behind us, but to talk about the dangers of BDS is really an ethereal thing. Once you hear what occurred at Columbia University, courtesy of Mr. Taylor, I am sure your image of this will change.
I agree with everything that Fern said, and she says it mildly, I might add.
I'm trying to be mild.
She's very mild, compared to me. I have gone to Tufts University. I've given panels at Columbia on diversity. We have an organization of diversity and multiculturalism. Tufts University developed from an anti-Zionism course to now colonizing Palestine. It's symbolic of what's happened to all the universities. At Columbia, it escalated to the point where Ophir Dayan, the daughter of the Consul General to New York, was assaulted and threatened and feared for her safety and went out publicly. And to show you the paucity of our ranks, you ask about the Jewish establishment leaders. There are none. There are no leaders. We have no leaders anymore. Carlebach was a leader. Kahane was a leader. Schneerson was a leader. There are no leaders today except Netanyahu, who has his hands full. They even go after his wife. For God's sakes, at Columbia, every member of the Faculty of Political Science and South Asian departments is a Muslim who hates Israel and Jews, and they condemn every Israeli and Jew they see, and they tell you if you don't even have brown eyes, you're not entitled to Israel, and they affect their grades and their graduation. Who would want to go to these schools anyway? But the Jews send them money, and the Jews want to go because they don't know. But I'm telling you, that hatred is from the BDS movement Fern spoke about. And yes, that is a far greater danger in America than these isolated right-wing people, because I'm sure they're coordinated. I'm sure that's a conspiracy. I'm sure they're meant for political purposes and to try and dissuade voters. But the BDS mean hate against Jews and Israel across the world.